She was a billionaire, beautiful, powerful, untouchable. He was a beggar, forgotten by the world, dying alone on the street. But when their worlds collided in a single moment, a kiss changed everything. What started as an act of kindness turned into the most unbelievable love story you'll ever hear. One that proved money can't buy love, but love can save a life. This is the story of how a billionaire girl saved a beggar's life with a kiss, and what happened next shocked everyone. The city of Los Angeles never sleeps. Its nights glow with neon, and its mornings shimmer with sunlit promise. Yet beneath the skyscrapers and the rush of expensive cars, there's a world that most people never notice, a world of forgotten faces, of people who once dreamed but got lost along the way. Amelia Brooks, 28, had everything people thought they wanted, the kind of life others would trade their souls for. The daughter of billionaire investor Richard Brooks, she lived in a mansion overlooking the Pacific, her name often appearing in magazines beside charity events, luxury galas, and corporate boardrooms she never wanted to sit in. To everyone else, Amelia was the golden girl of California. But deep down, she fell hollow, like a painting that looks beautiful from afar, but cracks upon closer look. Her wealth couldn't fill the silence she carried inside. The truth was, Amelia hadn't felt alive in years. Since the car accident that took her fiancé, her world had been frozen in that one terrible night. Every morning, she drove to the same cafe by Venice Beach, sat by the same window, and ordered the same black coffee she never finished. She stared outside, watching people pass, lovers holding hands, kids laughing, waves breaking, as if life was happening in a movie, and she was just a silent audience. Then one morning, something shifted. It was raining lightly, a soft drizzle that made the city blur like watercolor. As Amelia walked out of the cafe, clutching her umbrella, she saw him for the first time. A man sitting against a cold brick wall, soaked, shivering, a cardboard sign beside him. Need nothing but a second chance. His clothes were torn, his beard unkempt, his eyes tired. Yet there was something in those eyes that made Amelia stop. Not pity, not disgust, just recognition. As if somehow he carried the same quiet pain she did. She walked closer. He didn't ask for money. He just looked up at her and whispered, "You shouldn't stop here, miss. You'll ruin your shoes." Amelia smiled faintly. Maybe they need to be ruined. For reasons she couldn't explain, she knelt beside him, opening her umbrella over both of them. The rain softened, the world hushed, and for a few seconds, the city disappeared. There were just two strangers sharing silence, both broken in ways they didn't dare to show. She offered him coffee. He accepted with trembling hands. When he tried to speak again, his voice faltered, his body shook, and before Amelia could react, he collapsed. Time blurred. She screamed for help. Someone called 911. Her umbrella fell beside him, and in the chaos, she leaned over, pressing her lips gently to his forehead, an instinctive, desperate act, like trying to share life through touch. The kiss wasn't romantic. It was human, a whisper to the universe saying, "Please, not again." That's how it all began. The hospital smelled of antiseptic and sorrow. The doctor said the man, his name was Ethan Miles, had severe pneumonia, dehydration, and malnutrition. He'd been homeless for months. No ID, no family, no record where he came from. But Amelia couldn't leave him there. Something inside her refused. Maybe it was guilt, maybe it was compassion, or maybe it was that strange feeling she couldn't name, the sense that this man's story was somehow tied to hers. So she paid for his treatment. She stayed by his bed day after day, reading to him, talking to him. Even though he never responded, she didn't tell her father. She didn't tell anyone. It was the first time in years she felt a reason to wake up. Each day, she learned something new about him through small details. The calluses on his fingers that spoke of hard labor, the scar near his wrist that hinted at a past accident, the way his lips sometimes moved in sleep, murmuring a name, Claire. Sometimes she wondered if he'd once been in love too, and if losing that love had broken him the same way she'd been broken. One evening, as golden sunlight spilled to the hospital blinds, Amelia sat by his bed, humming softly. She took his hand, warm now, steady, and whispered, "You're going to be okay, Ethan. You just have to come back. And that night, he did. His eyes opened slowly, as if waking from a lifetime of darkness. They met hers, confused, fragile, but alive. Amelia's heart stumbled. She smiled, tears catching in her lashes. "You're safe," she whispered. He blinked, tried to remember, and then, almost inaudibly, said, "You kissed me." She froze, then laughed softly, embarrassed. "You remember that?" He smiled weakly. "How could I forget someone saving me like that?" That was the first moment Amelia felt warmth reach her again, the kind she hadn't felt since her fiancé's death. A spark, small but real. Days passed, and Ethan grew stronger. He had no memory of how he ended up on the street. His mind was patchy, his past a fog. But around Amelia, he began to heal, not just physically, but soulfully. They walked in the hospital garden when the nurses allowed it. She'd bring him books. He'd make her laugh with dry humor, and sometimes they'd just sit in silence, watching the sky. It didn't take long before whispers began among the staff about the billionaire girl and the mysterious man she saved with a kiss. But Amelia didn't care. For the first time, she felt alive again. One morning, she brought him breakfast, croissants, fruit, and coffee. He looked at the tray and smiled. "You really don't have to do this." "I know," she said, "but I want to." He looked at her for a long time, as if trying to understand why someone like her would care for someone like him. Then he said, "Maybe you're my miracle." She felt her heart ache, not in pain, but in awakening. Weeks turned into a month. Ethan was discharged, but he had nowhere to go. Amelia insisted he stay in one of the guest cottages on her father's property until he figured things out. Ethan resisted at first, but eventually he agreed. The cottage overlooked the ocean. Every morning, Amelia would find him sitting by the shore, sketching in an old notebook. When she asked, he said he didn't know why, but drawing made him feel like himself again. The more she watched him, the more she felt drawn, not by his looks or his past, but by his quiet strength, his gratitude, his kindness. He never asked for anything, never complained, and often thanked her for things she didn't think deserved thanks. One evening, as the sun sank into the horizon, Amelia walked to the beach. Ethan was there, barefoot, waves touching his ankles. She stood beside him, the wind tossing her hair, and said softly, "Do you ever think about why we meet certain people?" He nodded. "Every day. I think some souls are meant to find each other, no matter where they've been." Their eyes met, and for a moment, time stilled again, just like that day in the rain. Something was changing between them, something neither of them dared to name. That night, Amelia dreamed of her late fiancé for the first time in years. He stood in the same hospital room where Ethan had been, smiling faintly, whispering, "It's okay to love again." When she woke, tears were on her pillow. She looked out toward the sea where Ethan's cottage lights flickered in the dark. Something deep inside her knew. This wasn't just coincidence. This was fate's gentle hand pulling two broken souls together. But fate, as always, has a way of hiding shadows behind its gifts. Because the next morning, as Amelia brought breakfast to Ethan's cottage, she noticed something strange. His sketchbook lay open on the table, a drawing of a woman's face. Her face. And beneath it, written in shaky handwriting, were words that made her blood run cold. "She looks exactly like her." The morning sun rose soft and gold over the Pacific, but Amelia's heart felt heavy. She stood frozen at the doorway of Ethan's cottage, staring at the open sketchbook on his table. Her face stared back at her from the page, drawn in precise strokes, every detail captured with haunting tenderness. And beneath it, the words, "She looks exactly like her." For a moment, Amelia couldn't breathe. Who was her? Was it someone he loved before he lost his memory? Or someone he lost, just like she once did? Her hands trembled as she closed the book. She didn't know whether to feel scared, jealous, or heartbroken. But before she could think any further, she heard Ethan's voice behind her. "Amelia?" She turned. He was standing by the door, still damp from the morning surf, his hair tousled, eyes gentle yet filled with something distant, something that made her heart ache. She forced a smile. "I was just bringing breakfast." He smiled back, though faintly. You're up early. Couldn't sleep. Neither spoke for a while. The waves broke softly against the shore outside. Then Amelia glanced toward the table, toward the sketchbook she had quietly closed, and said, "You draw beautifully." Ethan looked at it, his expression tightening slightly. "I don't even know why I draw that face. It's just there, every time I close my eyes." "Do you think you knew her?" He sighed, sitting down. "Maybe. I get flashes sometimes. A woman by a lake. A promise I never kept. Then everything fades." Amelia sat across from him, her fingers tightening around her coffee cup. "You wrote that she looks exactly like me." Ethan hesitated. "Yeah, that's what scares me." Their eyes met, and in that silence, both felt the same strange pull. A mix of fear, longing, and something they couldn't name. Days passed, but Amelia couldn't shake that feeling. She found herself watching Ethan differently, searching for clues in his gestures, in the way he looked at her sometimes, as if remembering a dream he couldn't grasp. Her father, Richard Brooks, had finally returned from a business trip to New York, unaware of Ethan's presence. Amelia knew she had to tell him eventually, but something stopped her. Maybe she feared judgment, or maybe she didn't want to share what had become her secret world. This fragile connection she was building with a man she barely knew. One afternoon, Richard found her by the pool, staring at the ocean. "You look distracted," he said gently. Amelia forced a smile. "Just tired." He sat beside her. "You know, since your accident, I've worried about you. You've shut everyone out." She nodded. "I know." He studied her face. "But now, there's something different. Softer. What's going on, sweetheart?" Amelia hesitated. Her father wasn't a cruel man, but he was practical, a businessman who measured life in logic, not emotion. How could she explain that she'd met someone who reminded her what it meant to feel? "Just trying to help someone," she said finally. "Someone. A man. He was sick. I helped him recover." Her father frowned slightly. "And where is he now?" "In the guest cottage." There was a long pause. "You brought a stranger here?" "Dad." "Amelia," Richard said, his tone firm but not angry. "You don't know who this man is? He could be dangerous. People pretend to be victims all the time." "He's not pretending," she snapped, her voice trembling. "He was dying on the street. I saw it. I saved his life." Her father softened. "You've always had a big heart, but you can't fix the world by yourself." "I'm not trying to fix the world," she whispered. "Just one person." Richard sighed, resting a hand on her shoulder. "Just be careful, okay? Promise me." She nodded, but deep down, she knew she was already too far in. That evening, Amelia walked down to the shore, where Ethan was sketching again. The sunset bathed everything in shades of amber and rose. She sat beside him silently, watching the tide roll in. After a while, he said softly, "I think I remember something." Her heart quickened. "What is it?" "A name. Claire. I used to whisper it in my sleep, didn't I?" Amelia nodded. "Yes. I think she was my fiancée." Her breath caught. "What happened to her?" "I don't know," he said, his voice breaking slightly. "Just flashes. Laughter by the lake, a silver ring, and headlights. Then pain." Amelia felt chills run through her. A car accident. A lost love. It was too familiar, too close to her own story. She wanted to comfort him, but part of her couldn't help but wonder. Was fate bringing them together to heal each other, or to remind them of what they'd both lost? That night, as the waves crashed against the cliffs, Amelia sat alone in her room, scrolling through old news articles, missing persons reports, accident archives, hoping to find a trace of Ethan's past. And then she found it. A small-town report from Oregon dated 3 years ago. Local artist Ethan Miles and fiancée Claire Weston presumed dead after car plunges into Willamette River during storm. Search teams recover woman's body. Male passenger missing. Her hands trembled. He wasn't homeless by choice. He was a ghost of his old life, a man the world had already buried. She leaned back, tears welling. How much had he lost? And how could she ever tell him the truth without breaking him again? The next morning, Ethan noticed her distance. "You're quiet today," he said softly. Amelia forced a smile. "Just thinking." He nodded, glancing toward the ocean. "Funny thing about the sea, it takes and gives back, but never what you expect." She looked at him, wanting to speak, wanting to tell him that she knew. But before she could, he reached into his pocket and pulled out something small, a silver pendant. "I found this in my jacket yesterday," he said. "No idea how long I've had it." Amelia's heart skipped. Inside the pendant was a faded photo of a woman with light hair and a gentle smile. "Claire," he studied it, eyes distant. "Do you think it's her?" Amelia nodded slowly. "Yes, I think it is." He exhaled deeply, as if confirming a truth he both longed for and feared. "Then maybe she's the reason I survived. Maybe she wanted me to live." Amelia's eyes glistened. "Maybe she wanted you to find peace." He looked at her then, really looked, "And maybe she sent you." The words lingered in the air like a confession neither meant to say. Days turned into weeks. Ethan began helping around the estate, restoring Amelia's old garden, fixing things that had been neglected. They spent hours together, planting flowers, cooking, laughing. Slowly, the sadness between them turned into warmth. Their connection deepened, not rushed, not forced, but natural, like two melodies blending into harmony. One evening, as rain pattered softly against the windows, Amelia brought out a bottle of red wine. "To new beginnings," she said. Ethan smiled. "To second chances." They drank, laughed, and for the first time, she saw him truly smile. Not the cautious, polite smile he gave the world, but the one that reached his soul. When the power flickered and the lights went out, they both laughed, sitting in the candlelight. And then, without words, Ethan reached for her hand. It wasn't planned. It wasn't logical. It just happened. Two broken hearts finding rhythm again. She leaned forward, their foreheads touching. "I don't know what this is," she whispered, "but it feels real." "It is," he murmured, "and it scares me." "Why?" "Because I'm afraid if I love again, I'll lose again." She smiled sadly. "Then we'll love quietly." And in that flickering light, they kissed, not like saviors or victims, but like people who had finally found something worth holding on to. For Amelia, it was a rebirth. For Ethan, it was a spark through the fog. But as the candle burned low, the wind howled outside, and fate, silent but watchful, waited for its next move. Because sometimes the past doesn't stay buried. The following morning, Amelia received a call from a number she didn't recognize. She answered, still smiling from the night before. "Miss Brooks," a man's voice asked. "This is Detective Rowe from the Portland Police Department. We received a tip regarding a missing person named Ethan Miles. His case was reopened after a recent match found in the hospital database. We believe he might be with you." Her heart stopped. "Yes," she whispered. "He's here." "Thank you, ma'am. We'll be arriving in Los Angeles tomorrow. We need to talk to him and to you." The line clicked dead. Amelia stood frozen, her chest tight. She looked toward the cottage by the sea where Ethan was sketching again, completely unaware of the storm about to hit. The man she loved, the man she'd saved, wasn't just lost. He was wanted. And soon, the world would come knocking for answers neither of them were ready to face. The sea was calm that morning, the sky painted in gentle blues, but Amelia's heart churned like a storm. The detective's call echoed in her mind, each word cutting through her peace. "We'll be arriving in Los Angeles tomorrow. We believe he might be with you." Her secret world, the fragile, beautiful thing she and Ethan had built, was about to be exposed. She stood by the window of her room, watching the waves. Down by the shore, Ethan was sketching again, as he always did when he couldn't sleep. His figure looked peaceful from afar, but Amelia knew peace was an illusion. Behind that calmness hid a storm neither of them understood. She wanted to protect him, from the truth, from the world, from himself. But deep down, she knew the truth was already on its way, and lies, no matter how loving, have short lives. When evening came, she tried to act normal. She cooked dinner, pasta, his favorite, and they ate together on the porch. The sunset painted their faces gold, like a memory already fading. Ethan smiled softly. "You're quiet again." She forced a smile. "Just tired." He said, studying her. "Every time you say that, you're hiding something." Her heart tightened. "I'm not hiding anything." He leaned forward slightly. "You know, I may not remember my past, but I can read people. You're scared of something." She set down her fork. "Ethan, if your memory came back, if you learned things about yourself that hurt, would you want to know?" He hesitated, eyes darkening. "I don't know. Maybe some things are better left forgotten. But what if they aren't?" He sighed. "Then I guess I'd need someone to stand by me when I remember." Her eyes filled with quiet tears she didn't let fall. "You would." The next day arrived like a storm wrapped in sunlight. 2 black sedans pulled into the long driveway just after noon. Richard Brooks, confused and concerned, came to find Amelia. "Detectives are here asking for a man named Ethan Miles. Care to explain what's going on?" Amelia's stomach turned. "I'll talk to them." She met Detective Rowe and his partner, a young woman named Diaz, in the foyer. Both carried the kind of presence that filled the room. Calm but authoritative. "Miss Brooks," Rowe said, shaking her hand, "we appreciate your cooperation. We understand a man named Ethan Miles has been staying here." Amelia nodded, her voice steady but soft. "Yes, he was sick when I found him. I didn't know who he was." Rowe exchanged a look with Diaz. "That's understandable. His case was marked missing presumed dead 3 years ago. We reopened it after a hospital system flagged a biometric match." Amelia's throat tightened. "What happened to him?" Rowe opened a folder. "He was in a car accident with his fiancée, Claire Weston. Her body was recovered. His wasn't. The river carried him miles downstream. He was presumed drowned." Her heart cracked quietly. She already knew, but hearing it confirmed brought a pain she wasn't ready for. Rowe continued, "We're not here for a criminal matter, but the Weston family has been desperate for closure. They need to know if it's really him." Amelia looked toward the window, where Ethan stood outside, talking to one of the groundskeepers, unaware of the detective's presence. "Can we speak to him?" Rowe asked. Amelia hesitated. "Please be gentle. He's been through enough." Rowe nodded. "We will." When Ethan saw the detectives approaching, confusion flickered across his face. "What's this about?" Amelia stepped forward, her voice trembling. "Ethan, they just want to talk. It's about your past." He frowned. "My past?" Rowe introduced himself, speaking carefully. "Mr. Miles, we believe you were involved in an accident 3 years ago in Oregon. Do you remember a woman named Claire Weston?" Ethan's breath hitched. "Claire." Diaz handed him a photo, the same woman from Pendant. "Is this her?" Ethan stared at it, his expression twisting with pain. "Yes, that's her. She was my fiancée." His knees almost gave way. Amelia caught his arm, steadying him. "She died," Rose said softly. "We recovered her body, but not yours. You've been missing ever since." Ethan shook his head, voice breaking. "No, I remember the crash. I tried to save her. I was holding her hand. And then the water, I thought I died too." Tears welled in his eyes. He looked at Amelia, his face pale. "You knew, didn't you?" Amelia froze. "Ethan, You found out," he said, his tone trembling between hurt and disbelief. "You looked it up." "I didn't want to hurt you," she whispered. He took a step back. "You should have told me." The air between them shattered. Rose stepped in gently. "Mr. Miles, we can help you reconnect with your family. There's no legal trouble. You just need to verify your identity." But Ethan wasn't listening. He looked at Amelia, his eyes full of storm. "You said I could trust you." "You can," she cried. I didn't want to lose you when you found out." He shook his head. "You already did." And before anyone could stop him, he walked away, straight down the cliff path toward the sea. Hours passed. The detectives waited. Richard tried to comfort his daughter, but Amelia couldn't sit still. When the rain started again, She grabbed her coat and ran down the path, her shoes sinking into wet sand. She found Ethan standing at the edge of the water, soaked, staring at the horizon. "Ethan!" she called out. He turned slowly. His face was streaked with rain. Or tears. She couldn't tell. "Why didn't you tell me?" She ran to him, breath trembling. "Because you weren't ready. You finally smiled again, and I couldn't take that away." He looked away. "You think you saved me, but maybe you just delayed the truth." "Maybe," she said softly, "but I'd do it again, because for the first time, I saw you living, not die inside your past." He closed his eyes. "Claire's gone. I know. I loved her. I know. And I don't know what this is with you. I feel like I'm betraying her." Amelia stepped closer, placing a trembling hand on his chest. "You're not betraying her, Ethan. You're surviving her." He looked at her, eyes filled with everything: pain, guilt, love, confusion. "You kissed me once," he said quietly, "and I lived. Now I don't know how to live without you." She smiled through tears. "Then don't." For a moment, they stood in silence, rain falling softly between them. Then, slowly, he pulled her into his arms. They didn't kiss. They didn't speak. They just held each other, two hearts beating in the same storm. When they returned to the house, Detective Rowe was waiting. "Mr. Miles, I know this is overwhelming. We can arrange therapy, help you rebuild your records, whatever you need." Ethan nodded numbly. "I'll go with you tomorrow. I just need tonight." Amelia looked at Rowe pleadingly, and he understood. "All right, we'll check in the morning." The detectives left. The house grew quiet again, the kind of silence that wraps around pain like a blanket. Ethan sat on the couch, staring at nothing. Amelia brought him tea, but he didn't drink it. Finally, she sat beside him. "Ethan, listen to me. You're not alone anymore." He turned to her, voice hoarse. "But what if the man I used to be doesn't deserve another chance?" "You already took one," she whispered, "the moment you opened your eyes in that hospital." He looked at her then, really looked. "Why did you save me, Amelia?" She smiled faintly. "Because someone once saved me too, and I wanted to return the favor." He reached out, brushing a tear from her cheek. "You make it sound so simple." "It is," she said softly. "Love is simple. Life is what complicates it." They sat there until dawn, watching the rain fade into morning light. The next day, Ethan packed a small bag. He said he needed to face his past, to see Claire's family, to understand what was left of his old life. Amelia tried to stay strong, but her heart cracked quietly with each movement he made. At the door, he turned to her. "You saved me, Amelia, but now I need to save myself." She nodded, tears glistening. "I'll be here when you're ready." He hesitated. "I don't know if I'll come back." "You will," she said, smiling through pain, "because part of you never left." He looked at her for a long time, then leaned forward, kissing her forehead, the same way she once kissed his. Then he walked away, down the long driveway, into the waiting car. Amelia stood there, watching until the taillights disappeared beyond the gate. The house felt emptier than ever, like the ocean had taken something it had once given back. She walked to the beach and sat alone, letting the waves kiss her feet. Love, she realized, isn't always about keeping someone. Sometimes it's about freeing them to find who they are. But even as she sat there, she couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't the end. Because somewhere inside her, she knew Ethan's story wasn't finished, and neither was theirs. The days after the wedding felt like a dream stitched together by sunlight and laughter. Amelia and Jacob woke every morning in their quiet, coastal house, wrapped in the comfort of each other's presence. She'd never imagined a life so peaceful, so human. No board meetings, no flashing cameras. Just two souls who found home in each other's heartbeat. Sometimes they'd take long walks down the beach. Jacob's hand always found hers, even when the wind made her hair dance wildly across her face. He'd smile and brush it away, saying softly, This is all I ever wanted." But happiness, as life often proves, has a strange fragility. One evening, As they sat watching the sun dip below the horizon, Amelia noticed a letter sticking out from Jacob's jacket pocket. It looked old, worn, and unsealed. She hesitated, but Jacob caught her gaze and smiled faintly. "You can read it," he said. "I was waiting for the right time to tell you." Amelia unfolded the letter, and her heart tightened as she read the handwriting, her own, written years ago. It was a letter she'd written in her early 20s, after her mother's death, the one she had thrown into the ocean, a letter filled with pain, loss, and a plea to the universe to show her that love still existed. "How? How did you get this?" she whispered, tears already welling. Jacob's eyes shimmered with that same deep calm she had fallen for. "I found it," he said, "years ago, on a pier in California. It was washed up near my old tent. I didn't know who wrote it, but the words saved me. You wrote that even if life takes everything from you, love is still worth waiting for." I carried that letter everywhere. Amelia's chest heaved with quiet sobs. "All this time," he nodded, "you saved me long before that day in the rain. I was lost, not just poor, not just broken. I had no reason to live. But that letter told me someone in this world still believed in love. When I saw you again, kneeling beside me, trying to save me with that kiss, I knew it was you." Her heart cracked open, not in pain, but in awe. The universe had always known their paths would cross again. From that night on, Amelia and Jacob's love deepened beyond reason. They weren't just lovers. They were living proof that fate didn't need logic to create miracles. Months later, Amelia became pregnant. When she told Jacob, he froze, his eyes glimmering with a mixture of disbelief and joy. He wrapped her in his arms and whispered, "Then we'll give our child a life neither of us had, one built on love, not status." Their world seemed perfect until the night the accident happened. It was raining again, the same kind of rain that had first brought them together. Jacob had gone out to get Amelia her favorite chocolate ice cream. She had joked about craving it. He laughed, kissed her forehead, and promised to be right back. But hours passed. The rain grew heavier, and Jacob never returned. The police came to the door at dawn. Amelia's world shattered as the officer gently said, "There was an accident on the bridge." His car swerved off the road. She didn't remember much after that. The world became a blur of faces, condolences, and silence. The man who had been her miracle, her proof that love was real, was suddenly gone. For days, Amelia refused to speak. She sat by the ocean, holding his old leather jacket, reading that letter over and over. Her tears mixed with the sea breeze, and sometimes she'd imagine Jacob's voice beside her, warm, steady, whispering, "Don't let the story end like this." 2 months later, Amelia gave birth to a baby boy. She named him Caleb Jacob Westwood, after the man who had shown her the true meaning of love. The first time she held him, she felt Jacob's spirit in the room. Calm, protective, infinite. Years passed. Caleb grew up with his father's smile and his mother's determination. Every night, Amelia told him the story of a man who once lived by kindness alone, a man who believed that love could heal what money could not. As Caleb grew older, he asked one day, "Mom, how did you know Dad loved you?" Amelia smiled softly. "Because he didn't need to say it," she whispered. "He showed it with every touch, every look, and every moment he chose to stay." 10 years later, Amelia stood on the same pier where it had all begun, the place she had first found Jacob, and where he had later confessed about the letter. The wind carried the same salt and sorrow, but her heart was light. Caleb ran ahead of her, laughing, chasing seagulls. She sat down, took out a piece of paper, and began to write. "To whoever finds this, love is not about what you have, but what you give. Sometimes the person you save ends up saving you in return. And sometimes the universe lets you love twice, once in life and once in memory." She folded the letter carefully and handed it to Caleb. "Throw it into the sea," she said. "Let someone else find their miracle." He looked at her curiously, then smiled. The paper floated into the water, carried away by the gentle tide, the same tide that once brought Jacob into her life. As the sun began to set, Amelia whispered to the wind, "I'll see you again." The wind brushed her face gently, like a kiss. And for a fleeting second, she felt him, Jacob, standing behind her, smiling. Love, she realized, doesn't end with death. It becomes something else, something eternal, living in every heartbeat that dares to believe again. Years later, when Caleb grew up, he became a writer. His first book was titled The Kiss That Saved My Father. It told the story of how his parents had met, of how a billionaire girl's kiss brought a dying man back to life, and how that man had, in turn, taught her to live. It became a bestseller, not because it was glamorous or dramatic, but because every reader could feel the truth woven into every line. That love, real love, can come from anywhere, heal anything, survive everything. And somewhere far beyond this world, Jacob was smiling, proud of the legacy that one kiss had created. Moral: love is not found in wealth, fame, or beauty. It's found in the moments where you choose to see another soul as your own. The smallest act of kindness can change the course of a lifetime, and sometimes even death cannot erase a love that was meant to be.